Hey everybody, I'm Madalyn Sklar, host of the Social ROI Chat. We had an amazing one today, Marketing to Millennials with Chelsea Krost. I am so honored to have her here with us. Hey Chelsea, how are you?
Hello, I'm so honored to be here. I absolutely love the Social ROI audience. It was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun, and you're no stranger to Twitter chats. You host your own weekly chat, right?
We do. I think we have a nice amount of crossover, being that our chats are not too far away from each other. Millennial Talk, hashtag Millennial Talk, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. ET. So lots of great conversation going on Tuesdays, that's for sure, on Twitter.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's great that, you host a chat talking about millennials. I think that is so. Why did this start? Tell us about it. How did you get started with this? What was your reason?
It's a really funny story because I started working in radio when I was 16 years old. That's really how my whole evolution started. So it's funny, being such a millennial advocate and millennial influencer, being so digital today. My career started in local AM radio, about as traditional as it gets. And at that time, why did I start in local AM radio? Social media was at its infancy. I mean, it was like MySpace days, and YouTube was for funny cat videos. So there was no other platform other than local AM radio, and I seized that opportunity. And as my radio show continued to grow and as digital became more available, I took Team Talk Live at the time and took it to a digital radio station, Blog Talk Radio. And I realized I would always say, everyone, pull up your Twitter feed. I want you to get in on the conversation as we would talk to the expert or industry influencer of whatever topic we were talking about. And the engagement on Twitter was just so awesome and nonstop. And I always wanted to, I didn't want to not pay attention to who I was interviewing, but I was always so inclined to want to get on the conversation myself. And that really is what gave me the idea of, why don't I try to take these conversations and make them bigger? And ultimately, Millennial Talk, we launched Millennial Talk in 2013. We generated 18 million organic impressions.
Wow.
First Twitter chat, not one paid dollar, not one bot follower. I mean, this is all organic. And we have just continued to scale 4 or 5 years later now. We're moving into our 5th year. And the Millennial Talk audience has just grown. It's amazing how Twitter chats give the opportunity for us to communicate and connect with our brand tribes. And that's why I love Twitter chats.
That's so awesome. Well, kudos to you for running an amazing chat.
Thank you.
I'm getting a little bit of feedback, by the way, on your, it sounds like it's feeding off.
Oh, I'm sorry. You sound normal on my end.
Okay. It just started doing it all of a sudden. Okay. I think it will be all right. We're really pressed for time. I know you have to run. I thought, why don't we do one question? When we were on the chat, there was one question I thought really stood out. And it was question number 6, when we were talking about what values and services do millennials expect from online businesses. I saw everybody. I saw the millennials like throwing in their 2 cents on this. And I loved how you said millennials value the 6 C's. And you talked about, you want to go into that a little bit? I mean, I could read these off, but I would love for you to talk about the, communication, collaboration, content creation, all these things you're talking about. I found it fascinating.
Yeah, well, you know what? I tried to make it, there's so much information about millennials today. And there's so much information in regards to millennials and also social media, because they do kind of coincide. So I think a lot of people, there's a lot of misunderstood information because of how much is out there. So I was trying to find a way to articulate what millennial consumers value that would make it easy to remember. And if you could just remember these 6 C's, then you could really use those 6 C's as a common thread throughout your marketing strategies. And first being, I have to make sure I don't mess them up. They're not in front of me, but first being communication. I mean, millennials want to engage, clearly. We are digital natives. We grew up on social media. It is so native and organic for us to communicate via digital, via mobile, all throughout the day. So brands have to engage back in their consumer market. We can't just, as brands, we can't just post and disappear. You have to communicate with your audience. Then collaboration. Millennials want to get involved. We don't just want to sit back on the sidelines. We want to collaborate. We are a very collaborative generation. I think it's such an indicator to see all these incredible millennial influencers who are always collaborating with each other to ultimately bring more brand awareness or amplify a message of sorts. It's all about the collaboration. Convenience. In particular, millennials really look for those, self-serving solutions. We want to be able to empower ourselves with a convenient, quick fix. That's why we really gravitate towards mobile, because we can get so much information in the palm of our hand today. We really, if anything is too complicated, we're going to bounce out. So really making sure that your consumer journey is cohesive and seamless as possible is ultimately going to really speak to the values of the millennial consumer group. Then content creation. Traditional advertising is just not cutting it anymore. These billboard messaging is ultimately going to make people lean out instead of lean in. So we have to communicate our marketing messaging through storytelling, through content creation, whether it's a podcast or a blog or a video or a DIY series or a how-to. There's so many wonderful ways to utilize all these resources to create content. Live streaming, really effective. So we should all be thinking about how to use content creation to communicate those marketing messagings, especially through storytelling, because we are such a peer approval generation. We really look to our peers to validate this is the right purchase or a great purchase. That's where that user-generated content really comes into play. I think that was 5. What else did I miss? Convenience.
Let's see. It was communication, collaboration, content creation, convenience, customization.
And customization. Right. I mean, millennials really, we've been so empowered with the opportunity to customize our experience in so many different ways. And I think Nike ID was of the first to really blow up customization where you can customize your sneaker. So that we, don't give us a one-size-fits-all model. We really want to customize it to our liking. We want to customize it to speak to our needs, our values. So any way that you can allow the millennial, the consumer, to customize their experience or product for purchase is really going to speak to the interest and appeal to this consumer group as well.
It's such great stuff. I'm so glad you were able, I didn't mean to throw that on you. I was looking at the different responses, and I just felt like that question really got everybody fired up, and I loved your response to that. The other thing you mentioned, you did another tweet for question 6, where you're talking about millennials value transparency, authenticity, sustainability, experience, opportunity. And I love how you said corporate social responsibility. I feel like that's a really big one with millennials. You said we are more likely to purchase a product that has a give back component. Can you talk a little bit about that real quickly before we wrap this up?
Definitely. Yeah, corporate social responsibility is something that millennials are really demanding of brands more than ever. We want to see that impact that our purchase is making, and we're really holding brands and businesses accountable for creating impact in a way that they can through a one-for-one model like Tom's, or a percentage of every purchase goes to X. We really love to see brands infusing that philanthropic, give back, social component into their brand, into their messaging, into their initiatives. Millennials really gravitate towards brands that also resonate with their values in regards to the social issue or the cause that's, you know, being discussed at the time. Over 70% of millennials are more likely to purchase a product or service with a CSR component, corporate social responsibility component, versus one that does not. So it's a very influential marketing. It's a very influential way to speak to like-minded millennials within your consumer group. But here's the thing. Millennials are also really value that transparency factor. So if you're a brand, don't just pick a social cause and all of a sudden, you know, activate on behalf of that cause or that charity. We want to see the cause, the charity, the movement embedded in the DNA of the core values of your brand. Connect the dots for us, right? Don't just pick it out of thin air because it's trending right now. That will leave a sour taste in the consumer's mouth and ultimately hurt you more than help you. So think about your core values as a brand, as a business, and align yourself with something that, you know, represents your mantra and your mission.
I love that. That is so awesome. Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this really great insights. Thank you for being on the chat with us. It was so good. We'll have a recap out in a few days. And everybody that's watching this, whether you're live or you're watching the replay, hit that share button because it really helps get this out there so more people can see all this great content that we're putting out each week with social ROI and definitely with Chelsea's message because it is awesome. So Chelsea, thank you so much for your time. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Oh, thank you. Well, you could find me very easily at Chelsea Krost, all things, website, social media channels. Krost is Frost with a K. I love to connect on social, of course. Twitter is definitely my favorite place to be. So just, you know, you can find me at all things at Chelsea Krost.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chelsea, and everybody watching. We'll be back next week for another awesome chat. And until then, we'll just see you out on Twitter like we always do. So take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.